Hot chips. I love hot chips.
Yeah, hot chips are good.
Yeah, I love hot chips.
I read all the side effects and I don't want to take that.
I take so many tablets I rattle.
I looked up Dr. Google and now I don't know what to believe.
Who comes up with the names for these medicines?
I hate taking medicines.
Hello, g'day everyone, and welcome to the Medicines Ed podcast. This podcast is for anyone who wants to know more about their medicines. It's for anyone who wants to feel more confident using them, because if you are more confident and clued up about your medicines, then you can make better choices about your health. You can make the choices that are right for you. I'm John, and I'm a pharmacist who loves to help people mind their own medicines.
Mind your 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 own medicines.
We all have a story to tell, and sometimes the same types of things will happen in our own lives. We'll learn from others how they take care of their health and the part medicines play in their lives. We'll learn more about the choices you can make. Now it's time for our disclaimer. This podcast is general health and medicines information only, and the content is not health advice. We're all unique, we're all special. So please consult your healthcare professional if you have any questions about your health. Now, let's jump into today's episode. G'day everyone. Today we're going to be chatting about diabetes and also about using insulin if you have diabetes. Insulin's the injection some people use if they have diabetes. You might use it yourself, or you might have seen someone else using it. It's the sort of thing where they often inject into their tummies. Insulin's just one type of medicine you can use if you have diabetes. So we're going to have a chat about that later. We're going to be talking about what's called type 2 diabetes. There's a few different types of diabetes you can get, but we're going to be talking about type 2. This is the one you usually get later on in life. Not always, but usually later in life. Mainly we're going to be chatting about using insulin if you have this type of diabetes. And we're going to have a chat to Faye. Faye's had diabetes for a few decades, quite a few years. And we're going to have a chat about how she works the insulin that she uses for the diabetes and how she uses insulin to keep things under control. She's a bit of an expert at it, so it'll be good to hear her thoughts. Now just a little bit before we get into our chat with Faye, a little bit about diabetes and what it's all about. When you get type 2 diabetes, you've got too much sugar floating around in your blood. Why is this too much sugar thing not a good thing? Why do we get hung up about it? Why do we get hung up about sugar and diabetes? Well, the issue if you've got too much sugar floating around in your blood is that it can affect all sorts of stuff. It can affect your eyes won't work as well, your kidneys won't work as well, makes you more likely to get a heart attack or a stroke. It can affect your blood vessels, affect the pipes that carry the blood around your body, so they're not going so good. Makes you more likely to get a heart attack and a stroke. It can also affect how well your nerves work. It can affect how well you feel, like maybe in your feet and your hands, things start to feel a bit funny, or it might get a bit painful. And it can also affect how well you move. You know, it might affect your coordination, your balance, how well you can move parts of your body. So having too much sugar floating around is something to be taken seriously, and you want to get it under control, or as well under control as you can. So why have you got sugar floating around in your system anyway? Well, your body needs sugar for energy. Your muscles need it. All sorts of parts of your body need sugar for energy to do what they need to do. And you get this sugar, you get this energy from what you eat and from what you drink. Now, while you've got sugar floating around in your bloodstream, that's not really much help to anyone. The sugar's got to get from your bloodstream into your muscles, into where your body needs it for them to do what they need to do. And this is where insulin comes in. We mentioned insulin earlier, and we're going to talk a lot about it later. So insulin's a chemical that your body naturally makes, and it helps to suck the sugar from your bloodstream into the rest of your system, into your muscles and all of that, so that they have energy to do what they need to do. Now there's a couple of reasons why you can get type 2 diabetes. And this is where the whole sugar, insulin and the diabetes thing will hopefully come together for you. Now one of the reasons you can get diabetes is if your body's not making enough insulin. You've got all this sugar floating around in your system, but you don't have the insulin to suck it out of your system, to suck it out of your bloodstream. The other reason you could get diabetes is that the insulin that your body is making is having less of an effect on your system. So essentially your body's just ignoring the insulin that's floating around, so that the sugar's not being sucked out of your bloodstream to where you need it to go. So obviously you can take tablets and other medicines to help with all of this. Usually you start with tablets because, hey, that's a lot more convenient than an injection. So understandably, often you'll start with tablets first. But obviously you can also give yourself insulin injections if you need it. But why would you want to give yourself insulin injections if you have diabetes? Well, let's come back to the reasons why you get diabetes. The first was if your body's not making enough insulin. Well, if you give yourself an injection of insulin, you can get around this problem. You're putting extra insulin into the system and bingo, you've now got enough to have an effect. The other reason you could get diabetes was if your body is ignoring the insulin that's floating around in your system. So what you do in this case, you give yourself the insulin injection, you're piling more into your system so that basically you get over the fact that your body's ignoring the insulin that's floating around. You sort of overcome that effect by just piling heaps more into your system. And you get enough there so that it has an effect. Now, insulin might be suggested to people as a treatment for diabetes, and sometimes you can worry about it, you can get a bit freaked out about it, but you don't need to. Some of the reasons you may not feel comfortable or want to use it is that firstly, it's an injection, and people aren't too comfortable always with injections, especially if they're maybe having to give the injection to themselves. I can understand that, and I'm not going to say anything more about that. We're going to leave that to Faye later on to give you the rundown on that, to give you the drill. Another reason sometimes people get a bit worried about insulin is this thing's called hypos or hypoglycemia, technical word. What that means though is your sugars have gotten a bit too low for what your body needs, and you can start to feel a bit funny and all sorts of things can happen. Once again, we'll hear from Faye later about some of this. But what you can do is you can work with your doctor or what's called a diabetes educator. They're a type of health professional that specialises in helping people with diabetes. And what you can do, you can have a chat to these people and you can get a plan around using insulin that works best for you and the way you want to live. There's heaps of different types of insulins, heaps of different ways you can use it. And what you can do is you can come up with a plan that works well for you so your sugar in your blood stays good, doesn't get too high, and importantly, doesn't get too low. The other reason some people don't feel comfortable using insulin is they might think like they've failed because they need to use more than just tablets to get their diabetes under control. For a lot of people, diabetes doesn't stay the same. It marches on, and there are things you can do to make it better, to make it not so bad, like lifestyle stuff, maybe losing a bit of weight, watching what you eat, doing a bit more activity, a bit more exercise. So you can control it like that, but with time, it can move on, and maybe you need to use more medicines, something like insulin maybe down the track, and that's cool. That's just the way it works. Now, for this podcast today, I've got to give a big thank you to Diabetes Australia. They're an organisation that's designed to help people that have diabetes or those who are caring for someone with diabetes. They've got lots of information on their website, lots of tips, tricks, information, and I must thank them too because I've used some of the information on their website to help with my podcast today. So if you're looking for some more information, jump on the Diabetes Australia website and check it out. We'll jump right in now to our chat with Faye. And it's important before we hear our chat with Faye that Faye will obviously talk about her routine and the way she uses things and uses insulin. But you got to remember, this is Faye's routine. It's maybe not going to be your routine. We're all different. But I think it was important to hear from Faye because it gives you a sense of how she feels and the way she approaches things. She's got a lot of good information that I think is worth listening to. See you later on. We'll jump in now to our chat with Faye. Hooroo. So you obviously have diabetes.
Yeah, type 2.
Type 2.
Mm.
And how long ago did you find out that you had it?
Years and years ago. I wouldn't have a clue how long.
So it might have been 10, 20, 30?
Probably 20 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
You've known about it for a while.
Yeah.
Now you use some injections to help with it and some tablets. But when you first found out you had it, what happened then?
I think I was just on tablets.
Or was the original go about trying to change what you eat and do a bit more exercise? Maybe lose a bit of weight?
And I was working as well.
Yeah.
I'm sure I was just on tablets. And that
so you
probably
started on tablets?
Yeah, that continued until I retired.
Was the initial advice to try and do a bit more exercise and lose a bit of weight and watch
that
what
was
you
the
eat?
thing, yeah. Watch your diet and all that type of thing. So I just, I do the best I can. I it doesn't. I try not to go off the rails, but every now and again, you do. You have something that you probably shouldn't, but I mean, you can't make life too hard, can you?
But it tastes
But
good.
it's just, and if I can keep my blood sugars to a reasonable level, I'm happy. When you reach 40, that's it. Everything starts. Yeah. And I look at myself. I know it's not the in thing. I look at myself and I think of my mother, and I'm exactly the same as what she was. Same shape, and that's something you can't get away from. Yeah, I know it's not the in thing to say. And like I say, I just try and do the right thing. Occasionally I'll lash out, maybe Christmas or something, or birthdays or whatever or something, but,
What's your downfall? What food or drink will get you? What can't you say no to?
Hot chips. I love hot chips.
Yeah, hot chips are good.
Yeah, I love hot chips, but, yeah.
Do you have tomato sauce on your chips or just
No,
just
just
the chips?
chips. Yeah.
Yep, good
I
choice.
must admit that is, if I go out anywhere, they'll say, would you like veggies? I'll say, no, I'll have chips and salad. But, but I don't have them at home, so I only have them when I go out.
Now, with your insulin, so you said you started off with some tablets.
Yeah.
And have you had to chop and change tablets along the way, or what's happened now?
Oh, geez, I can't really remember. It's, like I say, it's so long ago. Gosh, maybe 5 years ago.
You started on
the needles as well, yeah.
the insulin.
On the insulin, yeah. Because I'm not a needle person. And I said to myself, I'm never going to be able to do that, And he said, you'll be right. And I am, sort of thing.
And what made you start on the insulin?
I mustn't have been very good at controlling it.
So maybe it got a bit too high for the tablets to control, so
Yeah,
you needed something stronger.
Yeah.
And the insulin can be pretty strong at pulling your sugars down.
Yeah. I find that I can keep a better control of it now that I'm on insulin, yeah.
How often do you give yourself a dose of insulin?
I've just recently started on doing it morning and night.
Okay.
I used to do it just a morning.
Now, with your insulin, your doctors cleared you up on how to change the dose of it depending on what your sugars are. How often do you give yourself a dose of insulin?
Morning and night.
Okay. And you check your sugars then how often?
Yeah, before breakfast and before dinner.
And you'll then use those sugar readings when you prick your finger?
See, obviously, see these ones here?
Yeah.
They're all over the place, but now it's starting to come down a bit.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to change from 12 and 12. I'll do probably 10 and 10 and see how it goes.
G'day again, I'm back. Just quickly though, Faye was just talking then about how she checks her sugars at home and changes the dose of insulin as she needs to, depending on how her sugars are going. And you can tell that Faye's really comfortable, really switched on about using the insulin and adjusting the dose, changing the dose up and down, depending on how her sugars are, depending on how much sugar she's got floating around in her blood. This is when, and you might do it yourself, you might have seen people pricking their finger, getting like a little machine that's a couple of inches long by a few inches wide, and popping their blood on the machine, and it tells you how much sugar you got floating around in your bloodstream. And Faye's able to base her dose, dial up her dose or dial down her dose of insulin based on the numbers that she's getting when she checks the sugar in her bloodstream. So what's happened is her doctor or maybe her diabetes educator has given her some ideas about where she should be aiming to have her sugars in her bloodstream. They've given Faye what you'd call a target, where she wants to aim at for these sugars. Now Faye was mentioning that her sugars are starting to get lower. They're starting to go down. She's pricking her finger at home and she finds the numbers, the amount of sugar in her bloodstream's getting lower and lower. And she's able to change the amount of insulin she gives herself based on these numbers. So she was talking about a 10 and a 12. The 10 and the 12 refers to how much insulin, what dose of insulin she's giving herself or is planning to give herself down in the future. So at the moment she's on a bigger dose, she's on the 12, and she reckons that she'll probably be able to drop it down to 10. So what she's doing is she's looking for patterns. looking for trends about how the sugars are going, how things are tracking, and if they're on target or not, or if they're a bit higher and lower. And she's got the confidence, she's clued up enough to change how much insulin she gives based upon these numbers. So your doctor or your diabetes educator can clue you up about all of this if you want. You might feel comfortable just sticking on the same dose and ignoring your sugars at home. Well, hey, that can be feasible too. You can make it as involved or as easy or as simple as you want. The benefits though, some good things about checking it at home and maybe adjusting the dose yourself a bit at home, is that you can get your sugars under control a bit quicker than if you're having to go back and forth to see your doctor or your diabetes educator. If you're doing it at home, obviously you can make the adjustments at home, not having to go and travel or talk to someone else to do things. So the adjustments can happen a bit quicker. You can get things under control a bit quicker. It also allows for a bit more maybe fine tuning, so you can get the control of diabetes and your sugars a bit better controlled, a bit more finely controlled. For a lot of people it's more convenient if they're able to do this sort of stuff themselves and not having to rely on someone else to clue them up on what dose of insulin they should be giving, what dose they should be using. But it's not for everyone, and that's okay. So just think of what approach might suit you. Let your doctor, let your diabetes educator, let whoever know what you're comfortable doing, what you're not comfortable doing, what you want to do, what you don't want to do, and they can work in with you. Faye does show, though, that you can do this sort of stuff at your home, and it can work really well. Okay, we'll jump back in now to our chat with Faye. Hooroo. So you find as your sugars come down, you can also then cut back on the dose of the insulin?
Yeah, I'll just change that.
How have you found, you mentioned you're a little bit concerned with using insulin when it was first suggested.
Yeah, only for the injections.
And how do you find the injections?
It doesn't worry me now. I've been doing it for so long, it just doesn't,
An old hand.
Yeah. But yeah, I've never been a good, I suppose as I've gotten older, I've gotten better, but yeah. Needles were never my favourite thing. When to think of it, to stick some in your belly, you think, oh God, it's not.
Yeah, most people aren't a big fan of needles.
No, but it's not a big deal, really.
Not doing it yourself.
And you think of all the, type 1 little kids and that have to give themselves injections. Think, well, what have I got to whinge about? So yeah, no, it's fine.
And do you find it a hassle to prick your finger a couple of times a day to test your sugars?
No, it doesn't worry me.
How do you feel if your sugars get a bit too low?
Well, that's it. I get the sweats. I feel really lightheaded, headache, bad headache, shakes.
G'day again. We were just chatting there with Faye about this thing called hypos or hypoglycemia. We mentioned that right at the start of the episode, and I told you we'd have a chat more about it later on. So these thing called hypos, that's when your sugars in your bloodstream are getting a bit too low and you can feel funny. As Faye mentioned, she might get the sweats when this happened, feel a bit lightheaded or dizzy, get a headache or get the shakes. Your hands might start to shake a bit. Some other symptoms that you might have this going on is you might get what's called heart palpitations, where your heart's sort of beating away quicker than normal, or you might get a bit more hungry than normal, or you might have trouble concentrating, trouble focusing and thinking. And if you've got diabetes and using insulin or any medicines for diabetes, you try and avoid this, but sometimes it can happen. And the reasons it might happen is that maybe you've eaten a bit less than normal, or maybe you've put off eating and you're eating at a later time than you normally would. So the amount of sugar you've got going into your bloodstream is different to your normal day. The other thing that can cause this maybe is that you're doing a bit more that day compared to your average day. So if you're doing a bit more, you're using your muscles a bit more, they're sucking more sugar out of your bloodstream than normal, so your sugars drop a bit lower than normal. So there's a few reasons why it can happen. Now there's some things you can do to sort yourself out if you get one of these hypos, because obviously what you want to do is bump your sugar back up. Obviously too low if you've got a hypo, so you've got to bring it back up to a good level. One thing you can do is munch on, say, 6 jelly beans. That can bump your sugars up. Or maybe have half a can of soft drink, not the low sugar variety, the full strength, the normal soft drink. Or half a glass of fruit juice can get your sugars back up. Obviously things get a bit more involved than that, but that's just some of the basics. And we'll jump back into talking about hypos with Faye, and she's going to talk about jelly beans and the way she tries to manage things. Hooray!
think I'll have some jelly beans.
Yeah, jelly beans are good. Half a dozen jelly beans.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I always have those, and I have them with me wherever I go. So
Yeah, the jelly beans will bump your sugars up quickly.
Yeah.
And make you feel better. And have you got any tips for someone who's using insulin or is taking medicines to help with diabetes?
Don't stress out about it too much, really. Just keep an eye on your blood sugars, and I guess don't rely on the tablets and the insulin to fix it if you're eating badly or doing the wrong thing, because that doesn't work. It's like I say, I lash out occasionally, but if you're going to do that all the time, it's no good. You'll just end up feeling sick and that, So best thing to do is just try to live, eat well and get a bit of exercise. I do exercise. I do square dancing twice a week, and I do Pilates twice a week. Walking is great. Walking is really great for you.
That's good. Keep moving.
Yeah.
Don't. You got to do some of the heavy lifting yourself. You can't leave it all up to the medicines.
Oh no, you've got to. Yeah. No.
Very true.
Mm.
Any thoughts for someone where it's been suggested they use insulin and they're a bit worried about using it?
Oh, don't worry about it. Truly, it's nothing. Really isn't. I was worried, and it takes you about probably a week, I suppose. And it's just part of your routine. You have your breakfast, you have your tablets, you do your needle, Well, that's what I do because that's my routine. And the same thing at night time, it really isn't anything. It's so easy. And especially now, they have the needles. I mean, they're not that long, are they? They're only teensy little
tiny
things, and they're very thin and that, occasionally you hit the wrong spot. But as soon as you hit it, so you take it away and put it somewhere else, so it's not really a big deal. No, I wouldn't. I would tell them not to worry at all.
Very good. You're an inspiration.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Faye.
That's all right.
That was Faye. She's an expert when it comes to insulin. I really enjoyed the chat, so it was good to hear from her. Now, at the end of our chat with Faye, we were talking about some of the lifestyle type stuff, the ways you can adjust the way you live to try and help with diabetes, and she was talking about diet, and she was talking about exercising. She likes to do a bit of walking, Pilates. So anything you can do to get your body moving is great for controlling diabetes. It's also important to watch what you're eating, watch what you're putting into your mouth, because that's where, the sugar comes from, is what you pop in your mouth, what you eat and drink. And also by watching your weight, that can have a good effect on your sugars too. If you are a bit overweight, even losing a few kilos can help bring your sugars down. And we also had a good chat about using insulin. Faye's hopefully showing you that it's something you don't have to worry about. It's something that you can do if you do want to do. So if it is mentioned to you, don't freak out about it. Don't worry too much about it. It is doable. Work with the people that are helping you with the diabetes and find a way of using insulin or your medicines that works for you, the way you live and how comfortable, how involved you want to get with it all. You can even be less involved than what Faye does. Faye was chatting about checking her sugars twice a day, in the morning, at night, and injecting the insulin morning and night as well. But you can even be a lot less involved than that. You can get really basic with it. So work with the people looking after you. Find something that works for you. I hope you're clued up a bit more about diabetes and clued up a bit more about using insulin and feel a bit more confident around that sort of stuff. I hope you enjoyed the chat with Faye. You can find information about any of the websites we spoke about in today's episodes in the show notes. Thanks to my brother Robert Woodward for expertly writing and playing the music on today's podcast. Please subscribe and follow the podcast so you don't miss an episode. You can also follow Medicines Ed on Facebook and LinkedIn. If you're interested in working with us, then please get in touch by email at info@medicinesed.com.au. Please feel free to also send us an email if you have any questions or would like to make a comment about the podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time. Hooroo!